Big part of this story, and I was shocked to learn it's happening in Detroit too, is this emergency manager craziness, which is not even legal from what I understand. They inserted an emergency manager here who ironically created much of the emergency. Can you kind of update us? Okay.
I hope so.
So update us on
Well, which emergency manager? We've had so many. We've had a string of them that have all kind of like we have a revolving door of emergency managers. I don't have my flow chart in front of me, so I can't even keep track of them. But there's so many really hardworking local activists that really have done a fantastic job keeping track of this. I mean, it's been since 2010, 2011. In fact, that's how we initially discovered problems with the water, was because of this fight against the financial emergency managers. So you have a series of acts that were enacted on not just Flint, but on cities all over Michigan. So this is a catastrophe that's happening in Michigan, and you find that mostly the predominantly poor, urban, predominantly African American cities are the ones that get targeted by the financial emergency managers. So anytime a city is declared, financially in trouble, the Snyder got to appoint someone to come in, an unelected official that he appointed to come in and start making very critical decisions. For Flint, it was our garbage trucks were sold off. Basically, anything that wasn't nailed down was sold. Our Santa Claus was sold. At the city hall, everything was sold to the lowest bidder, and that's not a mistake. It was actually to the lowest bidder. I mean, things were sold, for pennies on the dollar. It was an absolute disgrace, and it was all under the excuse of trying to save the city from financial insolvency.
So, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have governors like Snyder who give gigantic tax breaks to wealthy people, corporations, cut education, cut public services. Then when, shocker, there's an economic issue or debt, whatever the case may be, they put in an unelected official who pretty much, probably not unilaterally, probably, Snyder signed off on most of these things, put in austerity and played a huge part in the water crisis.
Well, the water crisis and several other crises. I mean, this is, oh my God, this is like an onion. Like once you start peeling it back, it keeps going and going and going, and you cry harder because it's just terrible what's being done. So yeah, it created the water crisis, but it's also, for example, one of the financial emergency managers we had was Darnell Early. He's one of the ones that was just recently charged with criminal charges. After he was done being financial emergency manager in Flint, he went on to the Detroit public school system, and you saw what happened with that. I mean, he messed that up too.
Yeah, I spoke with people in front of a closed down school, and they did not have kind things to say about him.
No, I don't. All right, I'm not going to go off on that. I just had some unkind things go through my head. So
no, let loose.
No, I can't say it on record.
Okay,
So.
I can't say it on record. But what I'm confused about, and I'm sure the layman paying attention to Flint, there's all this bureaucracy. But the bottom line is the governor made the decision not to put the proper corrosive measures in for these pipes. And that's in large part what led to this, correct?
Correct. And these were intentional decisions and policies that he enacted. And I don't think it was just, I think the excuse was that he was trying to save money or to help the city out, from going into bankruptcy. But in fact, there's a whole scheme to construct the Karagandhi Water Authority and to construct a pipeline. There's all sorts of corruption and backdoor deals that were involved in this. We're still uncovering to this day. We still don't know the whole story, and to this day, we're finding out more and more, and it's just very upsetting. So our water system ultimately is becoming privatized, and at the same time that Nestle is being given huge contracts to take all of our fresh water and bottle it up and sell it back to us. So the water that we're getting as relief from our poisoned water is coming from the Nestle Corporation, which is, taking out our Great Lakes. So I mean, it goes on and on and on, and it's just really disheartening. It's a huge struggle.
So I was going to ask you about that because Congress got a that-a-boy because they passed the relief funds, but my understanding is most of it hasn't been dispersed.
None of it's been dispersed. Where has it been dispersed to? And I'd like to see that. That's another thing that we've called for. We've called for everything needs to be fixed. The pipes need to be fixed. They all need to be replaced. They need to, replace everything that's been damaged or destroyed. The other demand that we're expressing is that we want to know where the money's going. There's an awful lot of money, and it's not going to the pipes or to the people who are actually suffering from this. There's a huge nonprofit industrial complex that is just thriving off of this quote unquote crisis, and there's money that's going to a lot of PR, public relations. We have um, a lot of brochures. The brochure industry is really thriving with this crisis. There are these glossy brochures that are just beautiful in color. Like, for example, we have all these posters around town saying, "Hey, are you suffering from the water crisis? Are you depressed? Are you having mental health issues? If so, call this number." And so they give you a number to call, and it's on all these brochures, and they're handing out all these things. So you call the number, and guess what? Do you get help? Do you get counseling? Do you get medication? Do you get anything that would be productive? No, you get another brochure with a checklist of ways that you can alleviate your depression, how to calm yourself down, deep breathing, meditation, try yoga. So that's basically where the money is going.
Unbelievable. So most cities have like an auditor or some type of document that says where the money's going. I know this is the way it should be, but I just interviewed someone who ran for auditor in Illinois. Theoretically, that's how it's supposed to work. So if the government has passed this bill, it's now a law, you're saying that none of the money has been dispersed. Is there any accountability of where that money is or where any money is for this?
I don't see any. And if there is any accountability, there's no transparency with the accountability. It's so difficult to keep track of anything. This is like an ongoing, rolling emergency that's been going for we're exhausted. We're tired of going to meetings. We're tired of the press releases. Excuse me, we're not tired of the information getting out there, but they're keeping us exhausted, and they're keeping us on our toes with disinformation and lies that are still happening today. So it's really, it's like going on the internet. You have all this information, but which is actually the truth? What's the important stuff that you need to look at? And I think that the PR firms and the different government agencies are purposely obfuscating this whole situation.
And another aspect of it is recently the Republican Congress just quietly in the night closed the investigation into Flint, which I find interesting because if this was Governor Bernie Sanders, let's say, they'd be calling for the death penalty by now. So how is it? I'm not just saying this because I personally don't like him or you don't like him, but how is it that the emergency managers are being being charged and convicted? Is there any ongoing process against Governor Snyder, who, as far as I'm concerned, is the most responsible for this?
Well, he's definitely the most responsible. I mean, it all goes back to him, for sure. Right now, it's I'm just an average citizen. I'm not privy to all the backroom dealings and what's going on, and I have a hard time keeping track of the information that's doled out, sparingly to me. At this point, I'm speculating. I'm surprised that actually some of the emergency managers have been charged. I'm ecstatic about it, but it's not enough, and they need to go higher. I hope that they're not just being the scapegoats, although for sure it brings me great pleasure to think about Darnell Early incarcerated. That's exactly where he needs to be, probably for the rest of his life, given all that he's done.
And for viewers who aren't familiar with what he did, can you tell us?
Well, he's the emergency manager who, flipped the switch and sold off our public assets and was just condescending and gleeful about it. Was just, he was just rude and insensitive and just mean-spirited and just a horrible human being, pretty much. I mean, so all of his public comments and his policy decisions, were very personally motivated and not, only interested in himself and in helping Snyder.
And to me, at a time when you have a racial demagogue stepping into office, I think it's the media's role to point out, even more so than normal, which they didn't do, that there's a very strong racial component to this. Do you think I mean, we know if this happened in Bel Air, I mean, the National Guard would have been in 2 minutes and it would have been fixed in a week. Do you think that part of the cherry picking of data, the cognitive dissonance, where they're trying to make it seem like everything's back to normal but it's not, is just because this is a poor black neighborhood mostly? And
Yeah, for sure. This is environmental racism. I mean, it's intentional. It's designed. Race absolutely has everything to do with this, as well as the intersectionality with class, and with gender, and with the poor households that are in Flint, and and in other cities in Michigan as well, in Benton Harbor, in Ecorse, in Pontiac, in Detroit. I mean, you can see the design and you can see the racial composition of these very intentional policy decisions that are being made.